In this video, I'm going to tell you how you can drive a car absolutely free. I'm going to go over my profits, my losses, my mistakes, and what you can do to avoid those mistakes, and most importantly, the things that you need to look out for when buying a car for yourself. Let's begin. Let's start with my wins, my profits. In total, over the last 9 years since I've been driving, so since 2014 when I got my first car, I have profited $24,500. The very first car that I flipped was a 1989 E30 BMW 325 IS. It actually was a shell with no engine, no interior, nothing. I bought that initially for $1,000. I had big plans of doing an engine swap. You know, like 18-year-old kid wants to do all this cool stuff. Never happened. What actually ended up happening was I sold it to a friend of the guy that I bought it from because he initially wanted to buy it. He didn't have the money. And on that car, I sold it for about $1,200 and I profited $200. And that whole time was about 4 months. So for 4 months, this car was just sitting in a field doing nothing. And hey, I profited $200. That was my very first automotive flip. Not conventional, but hey, it is what it is. My second one was actually a motorcycle. I bought this motorcycle for $1,000 in a very sketchy motorcycle repair shop in Tampa, Florida, where I used to live and go to college. And I actually ended up profiting over $800 on that deal. I sold it for a little less than $2,000, and I did literally nothing to it. It had a slight issue. I did notify the buyer about it, of course, but hey, $800 profit. I had that for about one semester, so about 3 months. Um, the third car that I flipped, this one was cool. It was a BMW E92 from 2013, I believe. It was a 328i convertible, and I actually sold that for a profit of 2,500 bucks. But the backstory on that car was very interesting. I literally walked into my bank wearing a BMW shirt, and my banker, who I didn't even really know, you know, he's just a banker at Chase Bank. You don't know those guys typically. He just go, hey, I got a BMW for sale if you want it. It's actually outside if you want to take a look. I was like, all right, sure. I took a look at it. It was mint condition, low mileage. He was an older guy, and I literally bought it from him for 3 grand, and I sold it for $5,500. So $2,500 profit, and I didn't even have to sell it. I literally went to a dealer and traded it in because I didn't even want to deal with it. I had that car for 3 days. That was a great time, those 3 days, but easy $2,500 profit. The next car that I didn't intend to flip, but I did have, was a 2001 BMW E46 M3. I paid $12,500 for that car. I put a bunch of money into it. I had to do the subframe, stuff like that. Not that any of you are interested, unless you're a car guy. And I eventually sold that car to a good friend of mine, and I profited $1,000. And I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to make a lot on this, but I need something. Give me $1,000. He was like, all right, I could do that. So profited $1,000 on that deal. Now, the reason I sold it to him for cheap and quick is because of the next car on my list that I bought, which was a 1991 BMW M3, also known as an E30 M3. You could see a trend. I like BMW. That car I bought for $12,000, and I sold for almost $22,000. I profited $10,000 on that deal. It was a shell, no engine, had nothing in it. That car was still is super desirable, and that profit took me about 3 months. I was going to build that car, do all this cool stuff. COVID hit, you know, the whole thing, sold it, made profit, and was very happy, no complaints. The last car on my list that I have profited from was actually very recently. It was in January of last year, so literally about a year ago. It was a 2018 BMW M3. It was literally my dream car. It was a very rare color that was specifically ordered for a specific individual. He had it custom made for him. It was really cool. It was a competition package, which is like a racing package, which really cool last year car. And I paid $62,500 for that car. And I did a couple things to it. I wrapped it in a paint protection film. I made some slight modifications. But anyway, I ended up selling that car for $77,500. I profited about $10,000 in the 8 months that I drove that car. That car was awesome. I don't regret selling it because of my latest purchase, which I haven't sold yet. It's a 2011 M3, which if you don't know, the older M3s are more desirable than the newer M3s. Love this car, don't plan on selling it. But anyway, now let's talk about my losses, the more important part, mistakes that I made. My very first mistake was my first car. It was a 2014 BMW 320i, my first BMW. I lost $9,000 on that car, and let me tell you why. Because I leased it. You should never lease a vehicle. I was 18 years old. It was my mistake. I got a good deal on it. I was leasing it for literally $250 a month for 3 years. Dirt cheap at the time, literally Honda cheap, which is why I did it. Unfortunately, leasing is not like that anymore. It's very expensive now. Even it never makes sense. Don't do it. So I lost $9,000 on that car because I made the mistake of leasing. The next car that I lost a lot of money on was a 2004 BMW 330i ZHP, which is basically a very rare package from 2004. They didn't make sedan M3s in 04, so instead they made this other sedan. They gave it a little bit of power, suspension, steering, all that good stuff, whatever, doesn't matter. I lost $8,500 on that car. I put a lot of money, time, and effort into that. I daily drove it for almost 2 years because I wasn't driving my other car. And I just, I actually really love that car. I hope to get another one day. But lost way too much money, and I'll never be that stupid again. Never put money into a car just because you like it. It doesn't make financial sense unless you buy it very cheap and have the spread to do so. I did not. It was a mistake, and I won't do it again. My last loss on this list was my first BMW that actually ran, and it actually was also my first M3. It was a 1997 BMW M3, which is the E36 M3, and I lost $7,000 on that car. Again, same mistake as the previous car, the ZHP. I put way too much money in that car. I was young at the time. I just graduated college. I was 22 years old back in 2017, and I put way too much money into it. I was still living at home. I wasn't saving any money. And actually, as you'll learn later on this channel, that is my biggest downfall is cars. I spent so much money in my early years, in my early 20s, on cars that I didn't save any money for retirement. So now, I know what you're thinking. You lost a bunch of money, but you also profited a bunch of money. What is your overall net? I'm going to put it on the screen, but my overall net is zero. From my profits and my losses, every car I've ever owned and driven on my own that I paid for, my overall net was zero. That includes interest on any loans, and it also includes taxes. It does not include gasoline, and it does not include insurance. So overall net, I'm at zero. So I've been driving cars for free for 9 years. So now let's talk about some things based on my experiences, because I am getting a lot better at this, that you can do when you're buying a car to make sure that you don't lose anything and potentially even profit. Yes, I do know that prices of cars are dropping very rapidly, but hear me out. The first thing you need to do is you need to purchase a car at a good price. I know it's very easy. Buy low, sell high. Very simple. However, a lot of people don't do that. They buy a car that's a year old or brand new, and they take a massive depreciation. Forget about COVID. COVID is almost over. Prices are coming down. You can't flip new cars anymore unless they're special, like a Z06 or something like that. So forget about that. But that's my number one tip. Look for a good deal. I'm not saying to buy the cheapest car out there because that's going to get you into problems in its own way, but just look for a good deal. The next thing is all about spec. If you notice, a lot of the cars that I've profited on were very, very cool specs. For example, my 2018 M3 was a very, very rare car. It was specced out by an individual. He literally custom ordered that color, that car, everything. It had every option. It was very desirable. I didn't even list that car for sale. Somebody found me and said that they wanted to buy it off me. Those are the best deals. The second thing is going back to looking for a deal on that particular car. The dealer, I bought it at a BMW dealer. They listed it for sale at a regular colored car. They didn't realize that it was an individual car. So I got a crazy deal on it. So again, putting the two and two together, getting a good deal on a special car. I'm not saying you have to buy a race car or anything like that. You could buy an F-150, you could buy a Bronco, you could buy a Jeep. Make sure it has desirable options that people want. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Go out, try and drive cars for free. It's a lot of fun. I'm a car guy myself. I've had some cool stuff, as you can see. Write in the comments if you've had good experiences flipping cars, intentionally, unintentionally. I'd love to hear your stories. But until next time, see you later. Peace.